Barry Sheerman MP, and I suppose most of my life, I've never really been interested in politics until I suppose all this kind of it's actually been well, a lot of time's passed now. It's been like 10, 12 years since I've been interested in politics myself, but majority of my life I haven't. So like I never really knew who the Huddersfield MP was or was interested. Maybe like the thing with the name Barry Sheerman, right, and his photograph when you see him, he's just got one of those faces, right, where he kind of looks a little bit like as if it I really don't know really how to explain it, right? Because I'm stereotyping now. It's all stereotyping, right? But you know, when you think of that time, this 1970, the late 70s, around when I was born, it's sort of like when the era when you're growing up. All the television interviews and the TV programs you watch and the kids programs um, and particularly things like football, you, you know, his name's Sheerman. It's sort of like farmers and shearing sheep. Although the football fans can associate with that because like it's all like they're going for the haircuts with Barry Sheerman, right, and getting like a short back and sides or something, right? Like he's the farmer or he's the shearman, but he actually did look. He did used to live in a 3 acre farm apparently, right? But so like I don't know. The you see the problem with Sheerman is I don't think that I knew. If you'd have asked me, I wouldn't have known who the MP for Huddersfield was. I probably wouldn't have known. But sometimes you get these kind of like gut feeling type things, or it's almost like like it's like he's a poet, but he didn't even know it. It's almost kind of like that there could have almost been this kind of like you know uh, sort of like entity of Sheerman, looking at Huddersfield, but you don't really realise it, but it is. It's almost like this Barry Sheerman legacy, right? But now when I actually know, I found out about Sheerman obviously when I got involved in politics, and he signed off one of my ombudsman complaints, but he's gone into the ether, like it doesn't fucking exist anymore. The ombudsman don't have it. God knows what happened to my complaint. They rejected it because there was too many things in one complaint, but yet they correlate things together afterwards. So it's sort of like I don't know what happened to that complaint, but the ombudsman's not fit for purpose. That's for sure. They're definitely not trying to solve people's problems. Policy's trying to stop them from being able to accept problems, and that's the problem now with this government. They don't actually want to do anything. If they could have a policy that actually could say that if they could get away with it, they could have they would have the policy like, oh, go away, we're closed today, we're not interested, like come back next week, or just like our policy is that we don't have to accept complaints. I'm quite well. The effectively, have got that many hurdles on the complaints now that it's and nothing gets done with them anyway. But anyway, so I've gone off topic a bit now. I wanted to just talk about this Shearman issue. So I thought Shearman was from Huddersfield area. I actually thought Shearman was from the Huddersfield area. And he isn't at all. I mean, I probably hadn't even heard him speak, but looking at his face, you just expect him to have a Yorkshire accent. Probably has picked up a bit of a Yorkshire accent if he's moved up here. But, so like, obviously, clearly now from Google, from Wikipedia, so he actually was a teacher. He was actually a lecturer, a university teacher at university, and he was actually on the schools committee for a while. But ironically, he's been one of the longest serving MPs in Parliament, but he doesn't appear to have had any cabinet positions or shadow cabinet or anything like that. He might have been on other committees, but he's only saying that he was on the school for committee for schools and education. So that was his thing. His thing was schools and education, which is quite ironic, really, if he has been in there that long and he doesn't really know much about privileges and rights and things like that. The Repeal Act to Most Petitioning Act in 1986, so he would only been knocking around for 5 years while that was in effect. and they got rid of all the aldermen and the older model for the councils in around 1972, 1973. He's nearly as old as our council, really. Sheerman is like he's very nearly as old as our council. Like it's about 5 years. Our council's only about 5 years older than Barry Sheerman. In Barry Sheerman's career in Parliament. To say that, I would have thought that he would have held some more prominent positions, but maybe he's been on more committees that they don't have listed. But I don't think he was notably particularly on any of the petitions committees or anything like. Oh no, they didn't have the petitions committee, did they? They didn't have a petitions committee. They didn't have a petitions committee since 1972. So he didn't come along till after 1970, or it was 1970. Somewhere between 1972 and 1974 is when they did that report, right? So they didn't have a petitions committee when Sheerman was in. All the time Sheerman's been in government is when they didn't have a petitions committee until like 2015, right? So they only just got it when he stepped down, and all the petitions just went to ministers for comment or whatever. And really, I mean, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, on 2015. So he's been knocking around since they had this new e-petition service, at least since 2006. But the internet since Bill Gates and Microsoft Windows 98 and so forth. So all this has sort of been going on while I've been growing up. Really, I mean, so yeah, I mean, he wasn't going for the MP here. He was. I should have known all this. Like I should have known this ages ago, like 2013. I should have known all this, like being a little swat. But I've been busy doing other stuff, right? I'm not a Nosy Parker. I don't nosy around about people. I'm not a Nosy Parker into Barry Sheerman's business, right? But now it's like I was just thinking, what committees has he been on? What has his roles in government been if he's been there so long, right? And I looked, and he only seems like he was on one certain committee. To do with education in schools and so forth. He was doing that for about 5 years or something. So he definitely wasn't put in a very important position with Tony Blair's government. Although, so he tried to get. He was living in Swansea. He was living in Swansea. And he was like living on a farm with like about supposedly 3 acres, and he tried to get into the MP for Taunton, to be the MP for Taunton even. He tried to get into being the MP for Taunton. He tried twice. Now that's in the southwest, which is quite nice down that way. But and then he ended up going for Huddersfield, and he got in, and then he's been here ever since. But he's not from Huddersfield, so he's not actually born or from the area. But I didn't know that at all. And then I think that obviously MPs have a place to stay in London when they're in Parliament quite a lot, doing work in Parliament, right? So like that's his city influence. So all of the Barry Sheerman MP influence on Huddersfield Town Centre and this perpetual redevelopment obsession with like modernising it and trying to make it all futuristic, right? Rather than keeping it as somewhere like Taunton or somewhere like in the southwest, right? Like. Dorchester, Maiden Castle. Sheerman's been probably the one who's been behind the scenes pushing for it to be kind of like all, like trying to get it like Manchester on the map and the football team and everything like that, right? And obviously the university, now it all makes sense. Sheerman was a lecturer. He was a lecturer at a university in Swansea, and he's into education on a committee. So that's the whole thing behind Huddersfield University as well, right? The whole redevelopment, and then Patrick Stewart, beam me up, Scotty, going where no man has been before, right? So it all makes perfect sense now. So much for the council being selfless and having a selflessness policy. When people usually would be, opposed to all these developments and things like that, and try to people tend to not want forced change, right? So I think that the entire town centre redevelopment and perpetual obsession with like changing it and modernising it is probably Barry Sheerman's probably played a very large role and part in that, I would have thought. And he's not even from Huddersfield. And he tried to get in Taunton. And ironically, it was the MP at the time for Huddersfield, around 1900, when that Victoria Tower was getting proposed and put on us by that strange cult that was going around building towers around England, right? Talking us into it. That MP went down to Taunton for a while, and he actually was an MP for Taunton for a while, and obviously got to see Glastonbury and places like that, because it was Glastonbury's like just over the other side of the motorway from Taunton, although there wouldn't have been a motorway there at the time, but it's like in the neck of the woods. Glastonbury is like in the neck of the woods of Taunton, right? If you were hanging around in Taunton for any amount of time, you probably would go to Glastonbury just to see it and have a look around, right? So you'd see Glastonbury Tor with the, church building on there, which is quite historic, right? Or that's been replaced. So he would have never been if Sheerman would have got elected in Taunton and won. He would never have been the MP for Huddersfield, and he probably might have even been the MP for Taunton for ages. It's quite interesting these certain characters end up, getting in somewhere, and then they just like stay there. There's a lot of places that there's a hell of a lot of places around England that don't have like one MP perpetually in place, like as that's their job and career for life. It's like just look at Denton and Gorton now. They've just got that new Green Girl MP in. They were over playing like Rochdale. It did have one MP for a while, and then like they've been knocking around with different MPs, George Galloway and then another MP. So some places like their MPs are in there for a very short amount of time. I mean, if you just look at our area, they keep changing the border on our area, right? We've got Iqbal Mohammed now, but before that we had Mark Eastwood, but we didn't really see him much because there was a pandemic lockdown. And then we had that Simon Reevil, who was a barrister. I really could have done with Simon Reevil now at the moment as MP, now that I've sussed out all the law, now that I've sussed out all the rights, and now that I've sussed out all the privileges, and I need to get action on it. And I've actually it's like I actually know what I'm doing with it now. But now it's just like I've got all we've got is the Solicitor General. I'm not knocking the Solicitor General, Ellie Reeves, at all. But what I'm saying is, I mean, I can't even contact the Attorney General in Parliament, right? The Attorney if the Attorney General was an MP now, right, I could pick the phone up and leave him an answering machine message like that, easy, right? Because they're the Attorney General of England, right? Because they're a member of the House of Commons. My issue is at the bar of the House of Commons, right? But at the moment, the Attorney General is like a member of the House of Lords. He doesn't have to reply to you. If you contact him in his Attorney General's office, speak to him because his face ain't fucking listening, right? And if you speak to someone on the phone, I'm sorry, we're not legally trained, and we only deal with internal government affairs. Well, what is the Public Order Act, 1936 for? I've been arrested. I'm in a police station, on Public Order Act offence. I need to see the Attorney General now because you've got to assess me because I've got a political object, right? Oh, we don't know what that is. Oh, well, you don't know what that is? It's meant to be England. We're meant to be the pinnacle of the planet Earth fucking legal technology, but it turns out we're turning into like a packet of donuts from Starbucks or something. We've got like little MPs walking in with a bag of chips into Michael Westwood's debate, rolling in there just rolling across the floor, like someone's rolled them in like a beach ball and then roll them up to a seat and put them in a chair. And then it's like, oh, there's a lot of interview. Got something really important to say now in front of the whole country on record, oh, there's been a lot of interference in the Michael Westwood petition. Yeah, like Sadiq Khan's G40 cities and his secret Spectre meeting with, international fucking terror group, his international foreign organisation. We were implementing policies into our government. That sort of foreign interference, selflessness policy of local council, getting all these 5G towers and 15-minute cities and the rest of the things that Europe want us to put in, not like what the local voters want the council to do when we go vote in the ballot box for the local council, right? Who voted for 5G towers, right? The company's been lobbying for that. There's serious issues. So, Sheerman actually only adopted to Huddersfield after he'd been a lecturer at a university. His first choice wasn't Huddersfield, it was Taunton. He tried twice. he ended up in Huddersfield, and then ended up becoming literally our MP for pretty much just short of my lifetime so far, and pretty much just short of the local council's lifetime. Like the local council's a bit older than me, and a bit older than Barry Sheerman's career, right? Absolutely mind-blowingly insane. And he was never on any committees like the petitions committee because he didn't have one. And obviously now they've got Paul Davies on there. But Paul Davies actually is from the area, I think. He was a Kirklees councillor. And I don't think he was on Kirklees council that long. The last thing that you want as a member of parliament is someone who's on your local council, because then you've definitely got some bias going on there, like get an agent into the government, like from the local council. Surely there should be some law against local councillors being allowed to be MPs, But anyway, that got him elected. He got elected anyway. He was on Kirklees Council. He got elected into Parliament, but that's on Firth area. But it's still sort of, it's still sort of around the area. But I'm not knocking that Paul Davies because I don't really know him. But he's connected with Kirklees Council, that's for sure. Whereas Barry Sheerman, well, they don't when Barry Sheerman got elected to MP, Kirklees Council had only been there for about 4 or 5 years. It was brand new, right? So, I mean, all the people there were new. They put it together, it was new. Because prior to that, it was all like mayors and aldermen, and they even had them sort of dealing with the crime committees and things like that. So, I suppose it's all part of this like New World Order since they changed all the format and the models for everything. But I mean, I'm actually just in shock and disbelief. I actually genuinely thought that he was from the Huddersfield area. I thought he was from Huddersfield, and I didn't know that he was into teachers and teaching. But that all makes sense with the university now, right? It all kind of fits together. So quite interesting.